Welcome to CodeNinja 100X Workplace podcast.
Hey, everyone.
Today, we're doing a deep dive into something pretty interesting. A LinkedIn post from DHH, David Heinemeier Hansson, founder and CTO of 37 Signals.
Right, the base camp and hey, folks.
Mm.
And he's got this strong take on the whole idea of forcing Google to sell Chrome.
Exactly. It sounds like a simple fix for ad market concerns, maybe, but he argues it could backfire badly.
Yeah, so our mission here is really to unpack that. Why does he think spinning off Chrome would actually harm the web and, harm us as users?
We need to get into his perspective on competition, the web itself, all that.
Okay, so where does he start? I think it was Chrome's origin story, right?
Yeah, he really emphasizes that Chrome didn't just, appear or get bought. Google invested heavily, built something technically strong.
He calls it a better surfboard for the internet, which is quite a phrase.
It is. And his point is, they won that browser war fair and square back then by just having a better product. So meritocracy in action, basically.
Uh-huh. And the implication is, if you dismantle something built on merit, even for antitrust reasons, what message does that send? Could it, discourage that kind of big innovation leap later?
That's a really good point. And then he tackles the idea of whether Chrome is really a monopoly in the browser space itself.
Right, because people talk about Google's dominance, but he lists alternatives.
Firefox, Safari, obviously, but also Brave, Edge, the ones built on Chromium.
And he mentions newer engines, like Ladybird, that are emerging.
So it challenges that picture of, zero choice. Maybe the market's more dynamic than it seems.
Well, he seems to think so. He's suggesting the real issue might not be Chrome existing, but maybe how its dominance interacts with Google's other businesses, like ads.
Okay, and this next part is quite contrarian, I guess. How Google's own self-interest actually helps the web.
Yeah, this is fascinating. He argues all that investment Google pumps into web tech, import maps, CSS stuff, web push, all that.
It's not charity.
Not at all. It's because their massive business, their trillion-dollar valuation, depends on a thriving, open, searchable web. For ads, for AI.
So they have to invest in the web to protect their core business. It's kind of capitalist incentives accidentally doing good.
That's exactly his angle. He calls it enlightened self-interest. Weakening Chrome could actually mean less investment in the underlying web tech we all rely on.
Which connects to his fear about the closed platform.
Precisely. He worries that if Chrome falters, who benefits? Apple's App Store? Google's own Play Store? The walled gardens?
He even compares it to the Microsoft fight back in the 90s, trying to keep the web open.
Yeah, he really sees the web as this vital, free and open application platform, and Chrome, maybe controversially, as a key driver, keeping it competitive against those locked-in ecosystems.
It needs constant development to stay relevant, and Chrome's pushing a lot of that.
Mm.
And then he uses that analogy, wealth versus riches. Can you unpack that one?
Sure. So he says, lawyers might look at Chrome and see its current value, the riches you could get by selling it off.
Like an asset on a balance sheet.
Exactly. But DHH argues the real wealth isn't that static number. It's the ongoing investment, the flow of resources making it better, which also pushes the whole web forward.
So if you just sell it off for the riches, you might actually destroy the source of the wealth, the ongoing development.
That's the idea. You stop the engine, and both Chrome and maybe the wider web ecosystem start to decline.
Okay, so pulling it all together, DHH isn't saying ignore potential ad market problems with Google.
No, he's careful about that.
But he is saying that targeting Chrome as the solution, forcing a sale, is potentially throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
Pretty much. He thinks it's a blunt instrument that could severely damage the open web, which he sees as incredibly valuable. The cure might be worse than the disease, in his view.
So for you listening, what's the takeaway here? DHH's perspective really links the health of the open web, where so much happens online, directly to this browser competition and development.
Yeah, and it suggests that even well-intentioned moves to curb market power in one area could have unintended consequences elsewhere, maybe even strengthening other monopolies or slowing down innovation.
It definitely raises a big question, doesn't it? How do you balance tackling legitimate concerns about huge companies like Google without harming the open ecosystems that, we all benefit from?
That's the tension. There aren't easy answers. It's something to think about as you click around online today.